reasons for invading Iraq. This was a war for oil. This is a war for controlling oil.
Yeah, you got that right.
George Bush and Dick Cheney are still at large. They are fugitives from justice. They have to be brought to justice. And there has to be strong action in Congress to do that, as Ramsey Clark pointed out. What's the result in Iraq so far? Oh, they've had elections. But the country's been blown apart. Over 1 million Iraqis have died. 4 million refugees. 4,400 U.S. soldiers died. Over 100,000 have come back sick and injured and traumatized. Their families brutalized and in anguish. $3 trillion it will cost us, according to Joe Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winner. The Iraq War. Total toxification, environmental devastation in Iraq. Water, food, soil, air contaminated. We still have 125,000 soldiers there, an almost equal number of corporate contractors, and the country can blow apart at any time. Yeah, that's a real success, isn't it? And that we're banking a lot of revenge. Our government is banking a lot of revenge in Iraq and Afghanistan against us in the future, with all the deaths of innocent civilians, families, wedding parties blown up. We're banking a lot of revenge. The Army combat captain, Matthew Ho, who resigned last September in protest, said the following: "To put it simply, I fail to see the value or the worth in continued U.S. casualties and expenditures in support of the Afghan government in what is truly a 35-year-old civil war." And then he also said, in both the RC East and South in Afghanistan, I, meaning Matthew Ho, have observed that the bulk of the insurgency fights not for the white banner of the Taliban, but rather against the presence of foreign soldiers and taxes imposed by the unrepresented government in Kabul. The Taliban is fighting against a military occupation. Some of them are in the drug trade. We helped create the biggest narco state in the world. Some of them are fighting different clans and tribes, because when a foreign occupier moves in, it's divide and rule. And some of them are fighting to protect their valleys. There are less than 100,000 al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, according to General James Jones, who advises the president in the White House. The rest of them have moved into Pakistan, into Somalia, into Yemen, North Africa, Southeast Asia, etc. What are we going to go to war against these countries as well? Where's the end here? The end is a mobilization for peace. The end is to come back to America and pay attention to the 45,000 people who die every year because they can't afford health insurance for diagnosis and treatment. It's important to know that unless we stay in Afghanistan eternally, we'll never outlast the insurgents, because our military occupation creates more and more insurgents, as General Casey and other Bush administration officials have admitted in public. It's important also to know that 25 to 30,000 Taliban with no Air Force, no Navy, no tanks, no artillery, no drones are tying down the most powerful military force in the world. I wonder why. It's because military occupation does that to people. They want to drive us out, as would be the case if the shoe was on the other foot. The culture of imperialism is expanding, not dependent on which party is in office. Some of you voted for Barack Obama as the least worst. But let me tell you, what difference in foreign and military affairs is there between Barack Obama and George W. Bush, except for the rhetoric? Even an Associated Press reporter on C-SPAN some months ago said there's really no difference. Look is there any difference with the military-industrial complex, the Lockheed Martins, etc., that Eisenhower warned us about, between Obama and Bush? No. Does Obama meet with any dissenting and peace groups, from the Veterans for Peace to all the various church groups and women's groups and student groups? He hasn't met with any of them in the White House, nor did George W. Bush. He still is using indefinite detention. He still is using excuses like state secrets to block lawsuits against a the brutalization and the torture. He's still violating our treaties and our Constitution, and he's still refusing to condemn the brutal Israeli government blockade and siege of 1.5 million people in Gaza, which is the largest prison in the world. The largest prison. Let's stop talking apartheid. This is the largest open-air prison in the world, an international crime by all international law observers. And Jonathan Tassini is running against the blockade, against the Israeli occupation of Palestine, for the Senate in New York State, inside the Democratic